Good evening, everyone. I can't say good afternoon because the time is displayed at the bottom right-hand side of the screen. So let's go with good evening. This is just a quick presentation and how-to guide on the operational aspects of the new SUNFin service desk. Finance has decided to make the slow transition to a fully digital platform in order to enhance our service delivery offering to the campus. We'll be using the same look and feel as the other service desks that are currently in operation across Stellenbosch University, and that will hopefully ensure that you as the end user have a standardized view when working via these channels. If you look at the landing page, you'll see 4 high-level icons, one being business area support, there's one for user access, another one for training, and the last one is for SUNFin maintenance. These are the high-level tiles that we will be loading in the production service desk environment, and that will coincide with the go live date of SUNFin. At the outset, the business area support one will be optional. User access, training, and SUNFin maintenance will be mandatory tiles that have to be completed for certain activities to take place, but we will discuss that a little bit later. For now, let's just have a look at the business area support. This is purely an additional communication channel that you can use to reach out to the specific SME and super user team that works in those specific business process areas, and they are also the same individuals that were responsible for your training leading up to the go live of SUNFin. So if we have a look at the detail under business area support, you will notice that it says SME super user assistance, and that you can log a business area issue or question that you require assistance with. If you click on that icon, or tile as we like to call it, it will give you a short narrative at the top in terms of what this tile can be used for, as well as instructions on how to complete it. You'll be raising the request on for yourself. You can raise it on somebody else's behalf as well. Once that has been completed, you can select which area you're currently having issues or experiencing issues. If you look at the drop down, all the main business process areas are depicted, and once you have selected the first drop down, the second one will cascade down into further options for refinement on that type of query. Each of the specific business processes have different refined options. This is to make it slightly easier for the support staff to identify the type of query that they're getting, and this also helps in routing the request through to the specific team. There's a team attached in the background to each of these business areas that is made up of the SME and the super user team. So if you are possibly having an issue in the accounts payable space, you can select from these 3 options, and you can put in a request summary. That'll be almost like the subject line of an email, and you can provide any further information that you may deem important for this query, as well as attaching any supporting documentation, screenshots, etc. If you were having a problem within expenses, for instance, you'd have different drop-downs again. You may have an issue or problem with a financial policy, an expense template that's being used that's not working as anticipated, or you're experiencing issues with the workflow within SUNFin. Once you have completed this entire page as such, so we can put in a request summary. And maybe other information, and upload a screenshot if you so desire. You could then click on create, and you would come up with a normal page that you would receive on any of the service desks that are currently in operation. It'll give you the details that you submitted, any other information that you've provided, and any screenshots. These tickets will then move through the normal stages that are in play for any tickets that are logged within the Jira environment. The stages they can move through start off with waiting for support. Any new ticket that's created goes into the waiting for support status. If the support staff has any queries for the customer based on the request they submitted, it'll move back into a waiting on customer status. And if the support staff start working on the query, it'll move to in progress. Upon completion or satisfactory completion of this ticket, it'll be moved into a resolved status. Or if the ticket was incorrectly created and we are informed of that, it'll be cancelled, and that'll then disappear from this page. If we go back to the main one, you'll also see that there is a tile for user access. Under this, there are 3 separate tiles, one relating to user access management, one for user access problems, and current user access. Current user access is quite self-explanatory. You give us the username that you use to access SUNFin, and we will provide you with a list of the current access that you enjoy under that username. So which job role you have. User access problems is for any problems you experience not being able to get to a certain business process, even if you have the desired access. We will investigate those. We unfortunately cannot reset passwords on this platform. That remains an IT function. Given that SUNFin doesn't operate on its own password system, it uses the single sign-on mechanism that is in use across Stellenbosch University and controlled by our IT staff. User access management relates to new job roles. And job roles relate to, if we relate it back to the natural environment, the programs you can access. Oracle comes, in this case SUNFin, comes with prepackaged job roles that leverage certain license metrics, and those are assigned based on the individual's use case for his work environment. If you select that tile, you'll be presented with a couple of drop downs. You'll also have a narrative at the top that guides you through. It requests that you complete all the drop downs below, provide any additional information that may be of relevance, and then it finishes off stating that we'll be in contact with you to confirm and action this request. So there are a couple of drop downs that need to be completed. One is whether or not you have existing job roles in SUNFin, and there's a spelling mistake here. Okay, I need to fix that. If it's no, this is the first time you're requesting job roles, you don't have access to the system. It won't ask you anything further. If you answer yes, it'll ask whether or not this request should replace your currently provisioned job roles. So this is in the use case where an individual changes from department to a different department and requires a different type of access, and we can then safely remove the access that was enjoyed under the previous work agreement. So we're saying that you have existing, and this request now should replace all existing job roles that you currently have. Underneath that, there's a question that relates to where you reside in the business. This is for security controls that will be enforced post go live and relates to data access. All this relates to is the different business units that are in play in the SUNFin environment, and they correspond to our Stellenbosch University organogram. You will see US1 is Stellenbosch University Main, where at least 90% of the employees reside. We have the Stellenbosch Trust, Rechtsfakulteit, STIAS, US Enterprises, etc., etc. These are also contextual drop-downs. You will see they change based on what you input, so all you have to do is go and find yourself or where you reside within the organization. If I work in US1, I fall under one of these RCs, or I reside in a faculty. The faculties are listed here, as well as the Data Science and Computational Thinking Center and the School for Climate Studies. So if I work under the Chief Operating Officer, All of these areas are in play: finance, facilities management, innovation and commerce, multi-sport, IT, and obviously the operational management, the RC or the COO. So if I work in finance, I go and select finance. The next selection depends on what user type you are. For 95% of the user base, it would be a normal end user. There will be certain support hub users that have slightly elevated access with regards to reporting, general ledger access, etc., etc. Finance core users are individuals that reside within finance itself, and privileged access relates to high-level access within the system in order to make modifications to it, etc. All of these have different approval controls related to them. For end user, support hub user, and finance core user, line manager approval is required in the same way as you would have received confirmation or obtained approval for your access within Natural. Your line manager had to sign the form that was sent to FBS. For privileged access, there is secondary approval. That is a segregated approval function given the access levels that are required, and it is it's strictly controlled. So for a normal end user, if I was a normal end user within finance, it would bring up a bucket of roles that I can apply for, and these are all license dependent. So we will check that after each license issue. The base roles in play for the normal end user is the expense reimbursement. So under expenses, the role name is SUNFin Employee Custom. For procurement, it's the advanced procurement requester. These are, for the most part, the roles that we used within the training environment. It was for expense reimbursement and being able to procure. If you are a finance core user, the list becomes quite a bit longer. These are predominantly back office processing roles related to the banks, being able to approve transfers, the asset transactions, the individuals that have to sign off expenses from an auditing perspective, back office accounts payable and accounts receivable roles. For that, you would then just select the role buckets that you require. So if we go back to the normal end user, and you, for instance, needed both of these roles, you would select them, or just the one, depending on what the requirement is. The next question relates to your line manager for this assignment. As in the past, you require line manager approval to obtain roles within the financial system. This works on a normal search function. And works predominantly on the email address that's in play. This is my line manager. The reason we input it here is so that the system can route after we have submitted after this query or request has been submitted, it can route for approval to your line manager. It can happen electronically. You put in a request summary, your access required, whatever describes the request in more detail. Any other information or screenshots that may be of relevance. For the most part, it shouldn't be relevant for this type of query, but we're keeping it there just in case it is required. The mandatory fields on these forms will highlight itself automatically and will provide an error stating that you need to provide the relevant value for a field. It works on the same basis. You can now create that ticket. What you'll note from this request is that it differs slightly. In the previous one, it was waiting for support under the status. This one goes into under review. The first activity that will take place here is the support staff will reach out to the end user that submitted the ticket to discuss the roles that they require, balance it against the license metrics, and then make sure that they have all the information required. Currently, this is what will end up in the ticket that goes to the support desk. It'll have the roles required, where in the business you reside, whether or not you have existing job roles and whether they should replace the currently provisioned ones. You could also say no in that case, in that this is an additional request to supplement your current access. As I mentioned, the roles, and then the line manager that this should route through. The support staff will also validate the line manager within the system itself. They do have the option to change that if it was possibly entered incorrectly, so they can override that. Once that review is final and they sign off, both the end user and the support staff are happy with the final result, it'll move into line manager approval, a line manager approval status. The line manager will receive the same type of approval request he currently gets for any Jira request that requires approval in his email box, and he can approve directly there or come via the link to the same page and just click on an approve function. Once that approval has been given, the support staff will be able to action the request and provision that user with the required roles. For training, we have a couple of tiles here. One is for general training queries. This is a catch-all for any ad hoc training query that you may have. There's a request for training one, where you actually submit a formal request to receive training. And then there's two tiles here that relate to our Oracle guided learning software. One is where we would like to be informed if you see a possible error on a guide. The spelling may be wrong, or it's situated in the wrong place within the page, or it relates to possibly a link that relates to an incorrect data element. And then guided learning improvements as well. Any suggested improvements you may have on the wording, what else we may be able to add at a later stage. So both of these the software makes provision for us to put this in as well. So for instance, if you have a look, there's a narrative that guides you through the completion. It states if you have identified what could possibly be an error on one of the Oracle guided learning guides, please log a request below by completing all the relevant fields and if possible include screenshots. We will investigate and report back. Here you can select in which business process area that error is evident. It may be in more than one, so the option is here to select multiple business areas. The same holds true in terms of the request summary, other information, and obviously we always welcome screenshots to guide any investigations that we may have. And you can go and create that ticket as well. On the request for training, there are a couple contextual drop-downs. One is what training do you require? As soon as you select it, it'll open up the next drop-down. So we either provide business process area training or financial policy training. For business process area, you can go and select which of these you would like to receive training on. Just the one or a selection of them. And you can also request what delivery method you would like, the online recordings or classroom instructions. For classroom instructions, there is a caveat. We would like to know whether you have previously reviewed the online recordings. If the response there is no, when the ticket is opened, it will send a response to you and show you the links or highlight the links to where the online training, recorded training material is, so that you can review that prior to any classroom training. We found that it helps quite significantly if some of the homework is done before the time. That'll then be submitted, and one of the support staff will reach out to you to schedule the training. SUNFin maintenance relates to any cost center maintenance, creation, updating, closing cost centers, creating or maintaining existing locations, OU structures of where your quotas, and general ledger account maintenance. On the cost center maintenance, you have the options here of creating a new cost center, maintenance on an existing cost center, or bulk requests where we have large structural changes within the university where divisions move across to another RC, etc., etc. We don't want to enter each one individually. If you click on create a new cost center, you put this request summary in, the other information, and I don't think you'll have any supporting documents at this point yet. The system will automatically respond with a link to where the cost center document can be found and the instruction to complete it, and then attach it to the ticket that was created, and then it'll be taken from there. Maintenance on an existing cost center gives you a couple of options where you can change the cost center owner. It'll give you or ask you for the cost center number, the new owner, or you can do both. You may want to change the cost center owner and change the cost center description. Both of those can be selected, or just the one. The forms are dynamic and will build itself based on what you request. And there's also closing cost center, a request to close a cost center. The existing cost center that is in play, the target cost center that the funds need to move into upon completion. For locations, it's the same logic in play. You can create a new location. It'll send you the required information once the ticket has been created, or maintenance on the existing location. This one still needs to be finalized. On OU structure, you have the same create a new OU. It'll give you the options under which OU you would like to create, or what type of OU you would like to create. Or you may want to do maintenance on the existing OU, change its address, its name, parent, or type. The same contextual drop-downs appear based on what you select, or in combination with what you select. So if we wanted to change type, it would bring you the type down here, and you would be able to select which one it needs to change to within the rules and guidelines of the university, obviously. You may want to change its parent, and it'll always ask you what the existing OU code or OU name or code is that we are dealing with. Upon submission of this, it'll go through to the service desk agents, and they will respond with any further requests for information. And then general ledger account maintenance still needs to be built out a bit because of all the activities we did to clean up the cost of the general ledger accounts. We don't foresee much change in our current general ledger account landscape. As I mentioned in the beginning, the last three tiles or high-level icons are the mandatory ones that will be in play once we go live. It's no different than the current process where FPS was emailed with a request, document was attached. We are just changing the platform under which it is being handled. And that is to enhance the service offering that we bring to the university, as well as add a level of transparency in that you can see at what stage any of your tickets are. We're hoping that that is going to have a positive outflow on the finance service delivery. The business area support is just an additional channel that can be used. The normal methods of contacting the SME and super user teams still remain in play. You can call them, email them, knock on their door, whatever works at that point in time. This is just slowly launching an area within the service desk that will hopefully branch out into a much larger component within it as we transition to a more digital or a fully digital platform. The SMEs and super users, as I mentioned, are the same individuals that provided the training. They'll be behind the scenes working on all the tickets that come through. For user access, it's the same individual that has been looking after natural access all these years within the FBS team. Training, it's still Lizzie and Marianne. Maintenance, Marinda is still looking after these tickets. So the individuals don't change, it's just the platform that we're using. And any queries or questions related to any of these tiles, you're welcome to reach out to any of the SMEs, or as always, drop us an email on sunfin@sun.ac.za. Just put in the subject line SUNFin Service Desk, and we'll do our utmost to respond with any queries you may have. Have a good evening. Thank you.